5 foods. Every single one of them sold to you as the healthy choice. And every single one of them doing something you were never told about. There is a sweetener sitting in your sugar-free products that researchers found in the blood of people who went on to have heart attacks and strokes. There is a breakfast that millions of Americans eat because it is the responsible option, and it carries about as much sugar as a candy bar. And in January 2026, the United States reversed a piece of dietary advice it had been giving this country for 40 years, because that advice built one of these traps itself. We are going in order of size. 1 ingredient, 1 product, 1 aisle, 1 national belief, and 1 official recommendation. Not one of them looks unhealthy. Hey, I am Larry, and I am here to guide you through the science of living longer, feeling better, and aging on your own terms. And today we are going after 5 foods that Americans eat specifically because they believe those foods are good for them. Not junk food. Everybody knows fast food and donuts are not health products, and nobody is pretending otherwise. But these 5 are different. These are the ones you reach for on a good day when you are actually trying. And all 5 work on you through the same mechanism, and that mechanism has a name. Researchers call it the health halo effect. It works like this. 1 positive word shows up on the front of a package: organic, low-fat, gluten-free, plant-based, no sugar added. And your brain quietly upgrades the entire product. Not just the one thing the label actually claimed. Everything. And this is measurable, not just a nice theory. In experiments, people looking at the exact same dessert judge it as lower in calories when it is labeled organic, say it is fine to eat more often, and even decide that exercising afterwards matters less. This is not a failure of intelligence. It is a cognitive bias, a shortcut every human brain takes. And here is the uncomfortable part. Marketers studied this list of mental shortcuts long before shoppers ever did, and they do not use it to protect you from the error. They designed the front of the package to lean on it. Now here is why this matters far more for longevity than any donut ever will. A donut is an event. A halo food is a routine, and you buy it every week, eat it every morning, and feel good about it every single time. Longevity is not decided by what you eat occasionally. It is decided by what you eat 2,000 times without thinking. So let us start with something so small it does not even get its own line on the label. 1 ingredient, erythritol. It is a sugar alcohol made from fermented corn. It barely moves your blood glucose. And that is why it is in everything. Sugar-free soda, keto bars, low-carb ice cream, those packets on the coffee counter. In 2023, a team at the Cleveland Clinic published something in Nature Medicine that made a lot of people put down their diet soda. Across more than 4,000 people in the US and Europe, the patients with the highest levels of erythritol in their blood were roughly twice as likely to have a heart attack, a stroke, or die within the next 3 years. And here's the part that bothers me. Look at who is reaching for erythritol the most. People managing diabetes, people on keto, people who made a deliberate decision to walk away from sugar. The halo does not punish the careless. It punishes the people trying hardest, which does not mean trying is pointless. It means trying is not enough on its own. You also have to look under the label, because that is the only way to tell marketing from reality. And that, honestly, is the entire reason this channel exists. That was 1 ingredient. Now let us talk about an entire meal, specifically the one you eat before you have fully woken up, when you are least likely to be reading anything at all. Granola, breakfast bars, and flavored yogurt. The holy trinity of the American healthy morning. Look at the front of those packages. Whole grain, protein-packed, probiotic, made with real fruit. Every one of those claims is true, and that is exactly what makes it work. Nobody is lying. They are letting you finish a sentence they never said. Now turn the box over. Commercial granola typically runs somewhere around 9 to 12 grams of added sugar per serving. Plenty of breakfast bars clear 20 grams of sugar, which puts them in the same neighborhood as a candy bar. And flavored yogurt commonly sits between 15 and 30. For context, the new federal guidelines now recommend no more than 10 grams of added sugar in a single meal. So a bowl of granola with flavored yogurt on top can blow through that entire budget before 9 in the morning. while you are congratulating yourself for skipping the pancakes. And there is a second trick underneath the first one. Check the serving size on that granola because it is usually a third of a cup. Have you ever in your entire life poured a third of a cup of granola? Nobody has. That number exists so the sugar number next to it stays polite. Now let me draw a hard line here because I do not want the wrong conclusion. Plain Greek yogurt is a genuinely excellent food. It is fermented, it carries live bacterial cultures, and its sugar is lactose that came with the milk, not syrup added later. Fermented foods have real research behind them when it comes to lowering inflammation in the body, and I made a whole video on the foods that actually bring inflammation down, where fermented dairy earned its spot honestly. I will put it on screen. So it was never yogurt that fooled anybody. It was the dessert that borrowed yogurt's reputation and walked out of the store wearing it. So let me ask you something and be honest. What did you actually eat for breakfast today? And when was the last time you flipped that package over and read the added sugar line? Drop a comment. All right, that is the box. Now let us talk about what you are washing it down with because somehow the drink is worse. 100% juice. 3 claims. All completely legal, all completely accurate, and together they build one of the most successful halos in the history of food. A glass of orange juice carries somewhere around 21 to 23 grams of sugar and roughly half a gram of fiber. A whole orange carries The reason is what food scientists call the food matrix. Inside a whole orange, the sugar is locked into cell walls and wrapped in pectin, a soluble fiber that turns to gel in your gut and slows how fast that sugar reaches your blood. The fruit ships with its own brakes installed. Juicing removes the brakes and keeps the engine. And because a glass takes several oranges to fill, it hands you 3 or 4 fruits worth of sugar in about 20 seconds of drinking. There is a large study out of Harvard that followed more than 180,000 people for 2 decades. It found that eating whole fruit was linked to a lower risk of type 2 diabetes, while drinking fruit juice was linked to a higher one. Same plant, opposite direction. Now the next one is going to feel unfair because this product is genuinely good for you. Nobody lied about it, and it still ends up causing a problem, just not the one you would expect. Protein. It is in the pancakes, the coffee creamer, the popcorn, the ice cream. Somewhere in the last few years, protein stopped being a nutrient and became a personality. And let me be clear, because protein is essential, it protects muscle as you age. And holding onto muscle is one of the strongest predictors of how well you will function in your 70s. This is not an anti-protein segment. This is a segment about what protein is crowding out. Americans on average already eat right around 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. Meanwhile, 90 to 95% of us fall short on fiber, getting about 15 grams a day against a recommendation of 25 to 38. By some measures, only 1 adult in 20 actually hits the target. And a large series of analyses published in The Lancet found that people eating the most fiber had 15 to 30% lower overall and cardiovascular mortality than people eating the least, plus 16 to 24% lower rates of heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and colorectal cancer. The benefits started showing up at 25 to 29 grams a day. So look at the situation we have built. The nutrient most of us already have enough of gets its own aisle, its own shakes, and its own subculture. The nutrient tied directly to how long you live is the one nobody markets because you cannot make fiber exciting. Nobody has ever posted their fiber intake to celebrate a personal record. The halo here works differently because there is no misleading label, just an attention problem. Protein is countable and satisfying to track, it gives you a number to beat. Fiber is invisible and pays off 30 years later. And this is documented, not just observed. Researchers have tested whether simply calling something a protein bar, the name itself, and not even a claim on the label, makes people rate it as healthier than it is. It does. Which brings me to something worth saying out loud, especially if you are eating in a calorie deficit to lose weight. Protein products are very often more calorie-dense than whatever they replaced, because protein on its own tastes like cardboard and needs fat and sugar to turn into food. That is not good and it is not bad, it is just arithmetic that careful people forget, because the word protein reads as permission. Weight loss deserves a video of its own, and we will do it properly, because there is far more going on there than calories. And when a protein bar replaces what would have been a bowl of oatmeal, you did not just add protein, you subtracted variety. Your gut bacteria do not read your macros app. They eat fiber, and they respond to how many different plants you feed them. Every single thing we have covered so far was a marketing decision. Somebody in a room chose a word for a package. The last one was not a marketing decision at all. It was official. Low-fat dairy. Somewhere in the 1980s, low-fat became the default setting for American health. And this was not a marketing scheme cooked up in a boardroom. It was recommended, it was in the guidelines, it was in schools. Parents switched their whole families over because they were told it was the responsible thing to do. But there is an engineering problem nobody mentioned at the time. Fat carries flavor and texture. Pull it out of yogurt and you are left with something thin and sour that nobody wants to eat. So manufacturers did the only thing they could. They put sugar in. That is the trade the entire country made without ever being told about it. And we made it while feeling responsible for about 40 years. And there was a second loss nobody advertised. The vitamins in milk that matter most, A, D, E, and beta-carotene, are all fat-soluble. They live in the cream, skim the cream off, and they leave with it. That is why federal rules require vitamin A to be added back into 2%, 1%, and skim milk, while whole milk needs no such fix, because there is nothing to restore. And even then, only part of it comes back, since A and D get added while vitamin E and beta-carotene generally do not. Skim milk is the only food in this entire video that has to be repaired by law. Then the data started coming in sideways. A pooled analysis in PLOS Medicine combined 16 prospective studies covering more than 60,000 adults using blood markers of dairy fat instead of what people remembered eating. A separate meta-analysis across 18 cohorts found those same markers linked to lower cardiovascular risk, not higher. That is observational, so association rather than proof. But it is a large body of evidence pointing the opposite way from what everyone confidently expected. And in January 2026, the guidelines changed. The new dietary guidelines for Americans now recommend 3 servings of dairy a day, and they specifically call for whole and full-fat dairy with no added sugars, reversing decades of advice to reach for the low-fat version first. The same document also tightened added sugar down to 10 grams per meal. Read those 2 changes together, and the message is clear. The problem was never the fat by itself. It was what got poured in after the fat came out. And I'm not handing anybody a permission slip. The ceiling on saturated fat stayed exactly where it was, at 10% of daily calories. And nutrition scientists have pointed out those 2 instructions are hard to reconcile, because 3 full-fat dairy servings get you most of the way there on their own. So this is not butter is a health food now. It is a more interesting story than that. Because look at what actually happened. This halo did not come from a food company, it came from certainty running ahead of the evidence. A reasonable idea got simplified, then repeated, until it stopped being a hypothesis and became something everybody just knew. And moving what everybody knows takes 40 years and a mountain of contradicting data. So let us put all 5 back together, in order so you can carry this out of here in one piece. 1. Sugar-free is not consequence-free. 2. The front of a package tells you what was added, and the back tells you what it cost. 3. Juice is fruit with the breaks removed. If you want the fruit, eat the fruit. 4. Most of us are already fine on protein and badly short on fiber. And fiber is the one with the mortality data attached, so 25 to 29 grams a day is the number actually worth chasing. 5. The fat in dairy was never the villain. The sugar that replaced it was. And as of January 2026, that is the official position too. If this changed the way you were going to look at one package in your kitchen tonight, that is exactly the kind of thing worth a like. And it genuinely helps this channel reach more people who are trying to sort through all of this too. And if you do not want to miss what we dig into next, hit subscribe and turn on that bell, because there is a lot more of this rabbit hole left to explore. Stay curious, stay long,